Welcome, everyone, to this briefing brought to you by the Israel Defense and Security Forum, IDSF. In Hebrew, our name is Abitchonistim. IDSF is the leading Israeli organization advocating for strong national security to defend the state of Israel. It is a great pleasure to be joined today by the founder and chairman of IDSF, Brigadier General Amir Avivi. General, thank you so much for joining today.
My pleasure.
A lot has happened in this war since you were last on. What can you share with us, please?
Okay, so basically, Moshe, what's going on is the focus of the IDF in the south at the moment is in Rafa. One of the issues we dealt with in the last few days, and a lot of it was on TV, radio, and so on, and also now I'm on my way to the TV station. We see a gap, a very clear gap between what the spokesman of the army is saying, that they are on the verge of destroying the Rafah brigade, and what we are hearing on the ground from the forces operating in Rafah, that there is no pressure that is meaningful enough, that are not operating in a decisive way. I had some talks with some of the leading commanders in the Southern Command in the field, and there is a sense like there is a gap between the field commanders from the Southern Command and down, and what's happening above. And it's not really clear because the commanders feel that they are ready to finish Hamas, that they can do it fast, that they need to have to be commanded to attack forcefully the Hamas in Rafah. And what's happening on the ground is that the IDF is conducting like pinpointed operation raids and not a full-scale attack. And in this way, either it's going to be very long or we're not going to achieve what we want to achieve, is to really completely destroy the Rafah brigade, and also to reach the leadership of Hamas and so on. So it's not clear. Something is not functioning exactly the way it should. We're having discussions about that with the Prime Minister also, and hoping that we'll see in the coming days bigger pressure on Rafah from all sides. We have one division there, and we think the IDF has in Gaza more forces it can bring into this battle that is a decisive battle that needs to be won decisively. So this is what is happening at the moment. The other question is, this is something we have had a lot of discussions also in IDSF with the leadership of the organization, and many of them are also in reserve at the moment in the north. Is okay, what do we do with the north? And unlike Gaza, where our views are completely aligned, all of us understand exactly what needs to be done, and that the fact that we need to completely destroy Hamas, we need to bring them down, we need military governance for a certain period of time, we need to control the Egyptian border, we need full freedom of operation for years to come in the cities in Gaza. This is something that every officer in IDSF understands. When we talk about the north, it's more complicated, and there is a variety of views exactly what to do there. I mean, it's clear that we need to create the terms to bring our citizens back to the towns, and they cannot come back to a reality where Hezbollah is on the borders. And then the question is, okay, how do we push them from South Lebanon, and how far do we push them? Is it 10 kilometers just to make sure they're not in the range of anti-tank missiles and ground attack, or it needs to be beyond the Litani River, which is 30 kilometers? Can it be done diplomatically, or it's clear that we need to go to war? And if we do, what will be exactly the goals, to where we want to maneuver? What do we attack? Do we treat Hezbollah and Lebanon as one entity and attack the Lebanese infrastructure and destroy it? Or we focus more on infrastructure that is Hezbollah, and Hezbollah built a lot of infrastructure which is also civilian. It's not just infrastructure for their terror capabilities. They are supplying also water and electricity and other things to the Shia towns in the south, because in Lebanon, today as a state, there is hardly electricity, and a lot of the services are not functioning. There is, for a very long time, there hasn't been a functioning government in Lebanon. So a lot of question whether should we do we should seize the ports of Lebanon, prevent goods from coming there as long as they are shooting us close the sea. There are many things that can be done, and there is a discussion about that. And it's obvious that we're reaching the point where this decision making need to be done, because eventually the IDF will finish most of its missions in Gaza. We'll reach a point where we can leave a certain amount of forces there, which is much lower than what we have now, and then shift most of the forces north to deal with the north. And we need to be very clear what we want to achieve and how do we want to do it. And I think that when I look at the overall sentiment and discussions I see in Israel on the political level and also in the media, there are really two very distinct scenarios that are being discussed. One, I would call it the Biden scenario, which the parties on the left and also I would say Benny Gantz are aligned with, and it says we need to do everything to get a ceasefire in Gaza. We have to prioritize completely the hostages. We need to get all the hostages, and for that, afterwards, stop the war and have a ceasefire. And if we do a complete ceasefire, probably a withdrawal from Gaza, then also Lebanon will stop shooting us. And if they stop shooting us, we can bring the citizens back, and then we can even do a peace agreement with Saudi Arabia. And supposedly everything is great. Only one problem: we don't destroy Hamas. They will be able to rebuild themselves from scratch, and within 6 months, we'll go back to the 6th of October with full readiness of Hamas to attack us, and everything that we paid, all the prices will be for nothing. And we'll have Hezbollah on our borders, endangering, of course, the citizens in just the way it was with Hamas, and obviously with the huge chance that they will use first moment they have to attack us again. And seriously, people are supporting this idea, not really understanding completely the implications or disregarding them, really just thinking about how we can gain a few months of maybe of quiet. And then, of course, the other scenario is understanding that this war is an existential war. It's a long war. We have to defeat Hamas. We have to destroy them, and we have to take our forces north. And if Hezbollah doesn't retreat, we have to fight. We have to fight and win. And some people talking about the north are saying, if we had another year or two to organize, maybe get more capabilities and so on, that would be beneficial. But how do we bring back our people? we wait. That's one question. The other question is, okay, let's say we really prepare better, but so they will. So they will also. I mean, we hear now about militias in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Syria, all planning to come to Lebanon and assist in the fight. So if we wait, we'll have to deal with them, and that might be extremely problematic. Until now, we really managed to degrade the capabilities of Hezbollah. We killed many of their commanders in the south. We pushed them back quite a few kilometers. We destroyed many capabilities in South Lebanon. We also destroyed the air defense, and we now have freedom of operation for the Air Force. We have been doing that for 8 months. So how much better are we going to prepare the area for an operation? So maybe this is the time. I mean, it won't get any better than that. So basically, these are the discussions at the moment, and we'll probably see in the coming weeks where this is going.
General, thank you for sharing all of that. And I want to thank all of our viewers who tuned into this briefing today. Many of you know that you receive an automated notification from Zoom every day to let you know about these briefings. And somehow that automated message from Zoom did not go out today as it was supposed to. We're looking into what happened on the Zoom side. So everyone who is here, you made the extra effort to understand we had a briefing and nonetheless tune in without that reminder. So of course, thank you so much. General, I want to go back to what you started with in terms of this disconnect between the field officers and the higher levels of the general staff about the progress in Gaza. Are you able to speculate what the cause of this is? Maybe the general staff is interested in ending the war sooner, and therefore they have brighter eyes in terms of progress. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that one of the problems with the general staff is what is the vision for the day after? And it seems that regardless of everything that happened, they really don't want to stay in Gaza. And this is a huge problem because you cannot really secure Israel in the long term without staying in Gaza, without controlling the Egyptian border, without freedom of operation in all the cities, without, for a certain period of time, controlling also the civil side until we are able in the long term to build some local leadership in the cities. It's a process, and they don't want to deal with this. So it's like they are extending the time in which they will have to deal with reality, and deal with the repercussions of what it means to really safeguard the South and Israel from this threat. One of the things that I heard from one of the generals in the army, he says, there is this hostage deal. Whatever they decide, we'll manage. And one of the generals that was with me said to him, no, you won't. What do you mean you'll manage? If we leave the Egyptian border and endless amount of weapons will come from the Sinai Peninsula to Gaza, how will you manage? If somebody tells you you cannot act freely anymore and degrade capabilities in Gaza, how will you manage? If they will say to you, you cannot have a perimeter to defend the towns, how will you manage? This idea, which is really ridiculous, that no matter what happens, the IDF can safeguard and do its job, it's simply not true. And I would have expected after the 7th of October that this kind of thinking will not exist anymore, but it does.
So let me ask another question. What percentage would you say, roughly, what percentage of generals, of high-ranking officers in the Army align with your values, with IDSF values and ways of thinking? And what percentage are kind of opposed to the way IDSF officials think?
I really don't know. I think that unfortunately, I would say that probably the majority are not aligned with what we are saying, at least not the leading officers that are commanding at the moment, the chief of staff, the head of intelligence, the head of operations. And this is for a very simple reason, because they promote each other. They create like a group that is busy promoting each other, and then they're all like-minded. They think in a certain way, which is not really connected to reality.
Let's move on to another line of questioning. The war cabinet was disbanded after Benny Gantz left. Now there is no war cabinet. How will that impact what is happening in Gaza and then Lebanon moving forward?
No, it's not right. There is a war cabinet. The cabinet
The
is
smaller war cabinet.
So the smaller war cabinet has no base in the law. There is only one cabinet in the Israeli law, and that's the main cabinet. There wasn't a need for a small one from the very beginning. They could have dealt with all the decisions in the cabinet according to the law. And now we go back to the law, to the cabinet. There is a war cabinet, and it will take the decisions.
Thank you. Well, what do you see the U.S. role in negotiating some type of agreement with Hezbollah in Lebanon?
Well, it could be a very big role if the U.S. Is willing to pose a military threat on Hezbollah and Iran. But I don't see all this talking of Hochstein that has been dealing with Lebanon for the last 8 months, changing really reality. Cannot talk your way from this reality. You have to show strength. And this is why I'm not optimistic about a diplomatic solution.
Now that we are getting closer and closer to a completion of the war in Gaza, many of our viewers want to know your opinion on the day after and what should be the level of Israeli control and presence in Gaza.
The level is dependent on the threat. So the more you manage to dismantle the terror in Gaza, the less forces you'll need. So
in terms of the war here in Israel and its connection and timing to the elections in the US, do you see the IDF or diplomats here pressured to speed up or slow down operations? Is what's happening in the US now impacting at all this war?
Well, I mean, logic would have suggested that we have to push strong and finish it as soon as possible. But for some reason, this is not what's happening. The IDF is not attacking in a way that really shows that it's urgent to finish the main missions in Gaza. And they could attack much stronger. It's not happening at the moment. And this is it's problematic. It extends the time we're dealing with Gaza at the expense of what we need to do in the north.
Okay, I think we're going to wrap up our briefing here, General, unless you have any final thoughts to share with our audience today.
Well, I think that we have very challenging job, mainly to strengthen the society, because it's very hard to sustain such a long war. People beginning were shocked, and then they were all really into the fight and supporting the soldiers and everything. And as the society is moving towards dealing again with everyday issues and politics and so on, while the soldiers are fighting, this creates a big challenge how to keep the society alert and supportive of the efforts of war, and especially when it's not a united government, but a government that is based on the rights. And what makes it also difficult is the fact that we obviously need manpower, and the fact that the ultra-Orthodox are not really standing and saying, okay, we need to join the army. We understand that this is a crucial moment. This gets very many people really upset, and creates a kind of division that it's problematic in times of war. I would really like to see the rabbis of these communities understanding how crucial this moment is, why they need to encourage the people to join the army.
Absolutely. Thank you. I know we've done a briefing or two on that issue in the past, and maybe it's certainly worthwhile to explore that again. Thank you to all of our viewers and supporters for tuning into this briefing. Brigadier General Amir Avivi, thank you so much for your leadership and for joining us today despite the heat and the tech issues. We will be back with you tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Until then, stay safe, stay strong. Take care, everyone.